Good morning, precious friends. I greet you in the powerful name of Jesus today. I think one of the things that I miss the most during this time of lockdown and COVID-19 is interaction and specifically touch with other people. Yes, us huggers, we are not okay. For me, it's hard to not greet with a hug or a handshake. It's difficult not to hold somebody's hand when you pray with them and to touch their arm in an encouragement. I miss that. I miss that a lot. Now, when I read Matthew chapter 8, I read about an unnecessary but so needed powerful touch. Jesus had been teaching on the mountainside, and his words had touched people's hearts as they still do today, and the people could not get enough of him. They wanted to be where Jesus was. And so as he made his way down the mountainside, large crowds followed him. You can just picture it, can't you? Jesus slowly making his way down the mountainside and all these masses of people following him, wanting more, wanting to be close. And just there, another person enters the scene. Verse 2 tells us, suddenly a man with leprosy approached Jesus. Goodness, I can just imagine a sudden shift in the mood. I can even almost feel it. And a little tension and fear enters with that leprous man. And possibly a little bit of indignation and anger from the crowd. Why is he here? He shouldn't be here. He doesn't belong. He could make us sick. You will know that leprosy was probably the worst thing that could happen to someone in those times, short of actually dying. It was considered a curse. It was incurable, deadly. There was no hiding the disease. It was obvious, and it was often ugly. In fact, lepers were called the living dead. How awful, horrible, and so lonely. Once somebody had been declared a leper, he was totally cut off from society. He had to live far away from people in isolation on the outskirts of the town. He could never go near the temple and listen to wonderful teaching. He had to stay away, and he had to wear the marks of a mourner. He had to tear his clothes and uncover his head and let his hair hang loose and cover his lips. If someone came near, he had to shout out, "Unclean, unclean," as a warning for them not to come any nearer. And when people saw the lepers, they would shrink back in horror and fear, lest they catch this dreaded disease too. And here this leper comes humbly to Jesus in front of this crowd, in spite of the crowd, ignoring the possible glares, the looks of disgust, the general feeling of not being welcomed or wanted in that space. And he kneels before Jesus. And verse 2, it tells us he knelt before him, worshipping. "Lord," the man said, "if you want to, you can make me well again." This leper knew Jesus had the power to heal. He had confidence in the Son of God's ability to rid him and cleanse him of this horrible disease. He had faith. And I love how Jesus responds. Look at verse 3. It says, Jesus touched him. I'm so taken by the way that Jesus responds to this man for two reasons. Firstly, Jesus touched the leper when he shouldn't have. It was against Jewish law for people to touch lepers. It was considered dangerous to touch lepers. It was a contagious disease. It was considered unwise to touch lepers or draw near to them. It would make you unclean. Jesus knew all this, and he touched him. And so Jesus touches him when he shouldn't. And secondly, Jesus touches him when he didn't even need to. Jesus could have just given the word, and the leper would have been healed. We know Jesus did that at other times. So why didn't he do that then, at that time? The leper didn't ask Jesus to touch him. He probably didn't expect Jesus to touch him. And yet, Jesus reaches out and he touches the leper. The Bible doesn't tell us why Jesus touches the leper that day. But I can't help but wonder if Jesus touched the leper because the leper needed him to. You know, it would have been so long since someone had allowed this sick man to even draw near. When last did someone stop and listen to him and hear him? It would have been so long since someone hadn't been put off by his appearance or the disease that he carried. The warmth of touch, a hug, a handshake, It may have already been just a distant memory for this sick man. And so Jesus does the unthinkable, and Jesus does the seemingly unnecessary. Why? Maybe he did it because that's just what the man needed. Jesus hasn't changed. Jesus still knows what you and I need today. He's never too busy with the crowd to not see you. He's not put off by who you are or where you come from. Your brokenness, your need, even your shortcomings do not put him off or make him recoil or turn away. Your biggest need doesn't scare him, and it's certainly not too hard for him or beyond his power to heal and restore and transform. Today, let's you and I be encouraged to draw near to Jesus just like that leper did, to come just as we are, to do it confidently, yet humbly, and in an attitude of worship, and allow Jesus to touch our hearts and our lives in the way that we need most. He's so willing. Will we let him? Oh, I pray so. God bless you.